Well, they're selling these pills and people are dying. So how many drug dealers kill people? And the sad thing about it is, I'm not sure what these pills go for, maybe $20, if that much. And a lot of them, they know what's in it. They know. But they choose to make a few bucks over someone's life. That's sad. She was a very caring, outgoing daughter, involved in sports. She just had the sweetest personality, beautiful, beautiful blue eyes, beautiful smile. When she walked into a room, everybody gravitated towards her. She just had that personality that lit up the room. Never met a stranger. Like I said, just kind and caring and compassionate for people. She was quite the character. I mean, we had a very close connection. We did a lot of things together. I loved to hunt. I took her hunting and fishing. We did lots of trips together, family vacations. And she was always just excited about those trips and what we were going to do on those trips. And we were fortunate to be able to do a lot of things, cruises, trips to the islands, Hawaii. And so she got to experience a lot in life. She was active in school. Like I said, she just never met a stranger. She went to a private Catholic school. She graduated and went to the University of Oklahoma, was studying nursing. And then there were a couple events that happened. Her granddad died, and it sort of set her back. They had a close relationship. So she came back home. She worked some and then toyed around for a while and met a guy, and he introduced her to drugs. And so we went through a period of time where it was tough. She was doing oxycodone. She was doing heroin. And it was just devastating to see that. I mean, it changes their personality. And she couldn't live at home. She had an apartment. She was working. Then she went back to school, and she was about to finish up her nursing program, and unfortunately the drugs got hold of her and she wasn't attending. She fell asleep in class, so she was dismissed from the program. So she was in a state of addiction, I would probably say about 4 years or so. And we were living in Tulsa at that time, and my wife and I had moved up here to Edmond, and she was still living in Tulsa. My son, who was 3.5 years younger, he was still living in Tulsa. But I think one day she finally realized what it was doing to her, and so she called me and said she needed help. So I went and got her. We took her to a rehab facility. And when she finished the rehab program, she moved into a house. They're here, and they got several places, other states too, called Hope is Alive. And she was living there. And then, she eventually became like the house person, house manager, whatever, of the house. And then, like I said, she just, everybody gravitated to her. She's extremely smart. So she ended up being the executive secretary to the people that founded Hope is Alive. And she was there 4 years. And she decided she wanted to go back to nursing school. Well, at the Hope is Alive, they have a lot of meetings, at night meetings, weekend meetings, events, church on Sunday. So it was hard for her to find time to go to school and work there. And I really hated seeing her leave, but I understand she was wanting to go back to school. So she moved out and enrolled in school. She took one semester online, and then the summer was off, and then she was going to start back that fall and, like I said, finish up the nursing program. And so my wife and I, well, we're both doctors. I'm a dentist. She had worked in my office in high school and beginning of college, so she had a good understanding. So she had worked for a dental group in Edmond, and they were glad to have her. She had only been there 7 weeks. She befriended a coworker. Of course, nobody knew the history of the coworker until after my daughter died. So she took her out to celebrate her birthday 2 days prior to her birthday. And they have video evidence of her at the bar. She had one drink, and then the girl gave her a fake oxy pill. She never made it out of the parking lot. Both of them passed out in the car. The one girl, when she came to, I don't know how long she was out, but the other girl came to and realized she was unconscious and not breathing. So she called 911, luckily, and then she tried doing CPR until the paramedics got there. And of course, they transported her to the hospital, but she didn't make it. So then became this whole quest of figuring out what happened. So the police arrested the girl. She spent the night in jail. The detective who handled my daughter's case, and my daughter's case, the state attorney general prosecuted my daughter's case. But they questioned the girl. She had 2 or 3 stories, always changing. So the detective told me I had a come to Jesus talk with her and told her she was obviously facing some serious charges related to the death of my daughter. So she gave up her phone, and she finally came forward and gave the true story. She had got these pills from a drug dealer that she had gotten pills from multiple times before. Like I said, no one knew the history of this girl, but she had her kids taken away because she would go to houses, leave her kids in the car, little kids, do drugs. She has 2 felonies. She was also responsible for her cousin's death associated with fentanyl in Florida. So nobody knew this girl. And so anyway, she ratted out on the dealer. So they did a sting, but they weren't able to buy any fentanyl products. They did arrest him. He bonded out the next day. I mean, minor charges, so the bond wasn't high. And he bonded out. Well, they took his phone when they arrested him. So now they got, evidence from the girl as well as the dealer. And so they're going through all of that. So then they find enough to rearrest him. He's in jail. He has a bond set, maybe I think like $50,000. Well, he makes bond, so he's out. Then they decide to have a grand jury hearing. And the date that they were supposed to have the grand jury hearing, the girl was sort of given immunity. Her saving grace was because she did call 911, but she was going to turn state's evidence against the dealer. So the day they were supposed to have the grand jury hearing, she didn't show up. Judge was furious because the judge that was presiding over this case, his son, they found him dead on the side of a building, fentanyl overdose. So he told the police there in the courtroom to go find her and bring her to the courtroom today. So they went and got her, and he read her the riot act deluxe, from what the detective was telling me. He told her how important this case was, how important her testimony was, that they were going to have another grand jury hearing, and she'd better be there. And he told her, matter of fact, I want you here 15 minutes early. And if you're not here, you're going to spend the next year in the county jail. So guess what? A month later, she was there. So they, had the grand jury hearing. So then they charged the dealer with first-degree murder. And so he has, I think, a $300,000 cash bond. And with a cash bond, obviously that's cash, all of it. So he sat in jail for that whole time. So it drug on, and we're going to have hearing after hearing, how they always get postponed. So it finally came down to almost a year later. He ended up doing a plea deal. He pled guilty to second-degree murder, and he got 20 years. And he got 12, what's called 12 and 8. So the 12 years, he has to serve 85% of it. Then he will get out, but he's on probation those remaining 8 years. And the Attorney General said if he messes up anything, he has to come back and serve the full 8. Well, if you look at his history, he's a career drug dealer. He was like mid-30s. He's done it all his life. So I get some assurance that he's going to end up serving almost 20 years. I have no doubt. The downside to that, though, is I have eternity without my daughter. He only lost a few years of his time. A lot of patients, a lot of friends when I lived in Tulsa, attorneys, judges. The district attorney for Tulsa County was a patient, and they all reached out to the DEA, reached out to the Attorney General. I don't know if that was it or they were making an example, but I was certainly glad that he handled my daughter's case because it was significant because it's one of the early ones to try a murder charge. And I was given the option of going to trial, and they told us that obviously defense is going to bring up everything that my daughter had done, and it was going to be heartbreaking. Were we prepared to do that? That was one thing. The other thing is you got 12 jury members sitting there. It only takes one to change the outcome of the trial. And so there was always the risk, since this was relatively new, prosecuting people associated with drug deaths, that he said, you could be rolling the dice. Do you want justice or do you not? I know a lot of people since my daughter has died. I'm a member of some groups, I speak at events, that have lost children that had no justice. Because they didn't know where they got it from. So I can honestly say I feel good that I got justice. Would I like to have had more? Absolutely. But I took somebody off the street that could potentially kill several more people. Her death certificate said alcohol, but it was at a point, it wasn't even enough to be charged with a DUI. And she also took a daily trazodone, so that was in her system, and then fentanyl. So her autopsy came back as, accidental overdose due to multiple drugs. and alcohol. Wasn't happy about it. And matter of fact, the Attorney General met with the state medical examiner's office, the chief pathologist. He deferred her death certificate statement to the toxicologist. And I was a little frustrated because I am a forensic consultant for the state of Oklahoma medical examiner's office. I do forensic dentistry. And so there were stories about his reluctancy to sign off on certain things. He has since retired, but I just got caught in that gap of hesitancy. Had it happened today, it would have been more straightforward. I feel sorry for people that I know that are going through the trial process, and some that haven't. They couldn't get the police to even investigate. And, you know, I feel sorry for those people because they know where they got it, but it's like they can't get any justice.